Qualifying was always going to be critical at Imola. It's a difficult circuit to overtake. There's one DRS zone and really one big overtaking opportunity as a result. So getting the qualifying right, starting at the front and staying at the front on the long run down to Tamburello was critical. And that is what Max Verstappen managed to achieve. But it was not easy for Red Bull. They didn't have a good practice session or practice sessions. And it went very, very down to the wire in qualifying. So if we look at the data here, we can see the top three teams. You've got Max Verstappen in the blue, you've got Oscar Piastri in the red, and you've got Charles Leclerc in the green. Now, there's a few interesting things here. Firstly, how close they all are through the corners. There's very little to choose between all of the three teams through many of the different corners. You've got Leclerc's got a very high minimum speed in the corners generally. Piastri's often a gear down at the apexes, but punching out, getting good exits. Whereas Verstappen is sort of a hybrid between the two of them. But if we circle the start of that is where the biggest difference came. And it's a slipstream from Verstappen, huge top speed into turn one. And you can see the difference now that it makes on the time is quite significant. There we go, the time ebbing away, 2.5 tenths that Leclerc lost there, 1.5 tenths that Piastri lost, all in a slipstream for Verstappen. And I have to say, this part I think was genius from Max. And we can have a look on the onboard now and see exactly how that played out. So here we go then, on board Verstappen, on his outlap at the final flyer, and he knows he's got Nico Hülkenberg behind, so he's gone very, very slowly and does a little bit of weaving, now building up the speed to make sure the front tyres are going to be in for the first corner. This is a perfectly calculated outlap from Verstappen. He's got GP telling him the gap to Hülkenberg the whole way, super slow into Variante Alta, letting Hülkenberg catch. As Hülkenberg gets there, it does that little bit of weaving and now sends it down into Rivazza and only just lets Hülkenberg go through. So this is partly he's being nice to Nico Hülkenberg, but mainly he's wanting to stay as close as he can to a Haas on a flying lap through these last couple of corners. And now you see Max absolutely gun it through these last couple of corners and fighting the car there. He's on the edge like a qualifying lap already in the dirty air of Hülkenberg, so that he can now pick up a slipstream. And this is it now. Nico's very, very kind to Max, repays a bit of a favour from the one into Rivazza, and this works out just absolutely perfectly. Hülkenberg doesn't want to get a penalty, then he jumps out of the way, and Verstappen starts his flying lap, and that is your big margin that he didn't give up until the end.
Yeah, we were tow buddies out there in Q2 already, Q3. So I gave him a tow to 17, then he gave me a tow to turn 2. I think I did arrive a bit too quick for my liking because I did miss turn 2 a little bit. So I did gain, and then I did lose a bit in 2. Overall, I think it did help me a little bit. But, you know, when you are struggling the whole weekend and then finally it's coming around, you have to look for these little advantages to try and, you know, stay ahead, and it worked out beautifully.
And that really was such a big difference for Verstappen. He gained 1.5 tenths to the McLarens, 2.5 tenths to the Ferraris, who were a little bit slower in a straight line in Imola. And you can see that as well through the rest of the lap, where Leclerc's green line just starts to nudge going higher on the long straights, particularly down into the Rivazzas at the end of the lap, where we do find quite a significant error from Verstappen as well. The exit speed in the blue for Max out of that final corner, down he has a big snap and almost goes out to the gravel. And you can see once again the time just going away from him as everyone charged up towards pole position. So it was a big win at the start of the lap, a little loss at the end of the lap for Max, and still he just about clung on to pole position. Hence the jubilation. It was one he really had to work for. Let's have a look at that moment at the final corner. Now back on board with Max at the end of his flying lap, and now the rear tyres are starting to feel a bit of pain. He's done 16 corners. Remember, he gunned the 2 on the outlap as well, and then we get to this final stretch, and he just has that slide out towards the gravel in this final corner. This is really, really tight. He knows he needs the good run to the line. In fact, he was probably safe with pole because of that Hülkenberg tow in the first place. But as he's now getting on the gas, the car's not quite rotating. He's running out towards the gravel, and that oversteer there, quite a long, lengthy bit of opposite lock, costs him the run to the line. But as it was still pole, and it was a tremendous effort from Max and Red Bull to overcome what looked like a little bit of a challenge for them through practice.
Of course, the final lap is all out. You try to risk it all, which I think you could see in the final corner. I had a bit of a moment there, but yeah, just really trying to get everything out of it.
The race wasn't easy for Verstappen either. The first stint was looking like it was going to be comfortable. He was very good on the medium tyre the whole way through the weekend. The Red Bull looked a little bit tougher on the soft. And once again, on the hard tyres, Max just struggled to get the tyre into the right working window. And if we jump on board with him in the latter stages, you can see sliding around, but also struggling to get the fronts to stay in the right temperature. And when they're worn down, you can actually lose a bit of grip on the front end and start sliding on the rear end. It's not a very nice position to be in. So if we look at Max coming through these first corners, you can see it's all okay. He's got a bit of traffic ahead, which doesn't help either. But the way he's just turning, he's not able to rotate the car very well through these medium or lower speed corners. If we look at Tosa again here, just having to apply the lock and just wait for the throttle so long here, washing wide, understeering, and finally he's able to get on the gas. And if we compare him to Lando, when Lando's now catching on lap 50, you can see the difference of a McLaren car that just looked like it had a bit more grip. The rear end was working well, but also the front end was just that little bit better. So he's got a good sharp turn in, and he's able to be a bit more direct with the car. That is Verstappen ahead. That's your traffic. But look at the way that Lando is able to attack and have the front end just where he wants it. So he's able to just sweep a much better minimum speed through these corners. If we look again at Tosa here, still waiting with the understeer, but he's getting to the apex, and now he can unwind the lock a little bit earlier than Max can. So McLaren went quite aggressive with the front wing, had quite a bit of front end in the car, and it really helps Lando at this stage where Max is just starting to lose a bit of front grip and start to struggle with understeer. But it doesn't stay that way for Norris, and later on he bemoaned that he had too much front wing in the car, and the car became really snappy. And this is when he's now getting dirty air from Verstappen. So if we fast forward to lap 58, he's got closer. He has the fastest car on the circuit for the second Grand Prix in a row. But now we're starting to see that he's pushing really hard. There you can see the race leader just ahead, and this is just tantalising for Lando, getting closer, applying the pressure, thinking, can he win 2 races in a row? But look, now he starts to head into Tamburello, and now the rear tyres are starting to give up. So flat out through turn 3, quite a big snap. That's overheating the rear tyres once again. And as we head once again into the Villeneuve chicane, loads of curb, really aggressive. The front end's still good, but he's having to just check on the rear end. And that is a difficulty that Norris faced. And it's quite impressive that he was hanging on to it on the ragged edge like that for such a long time, hunting down Max, really piling on the pressure. The McLaren car is obviously very quick, but driving through dirty air is always tricky. And we can see that a little bit more on the telemetry.
Guys, Norris is really quick. On the last lap, he just did his best lap of the race by 4/10. Leclerc's trying to up his own pace, but Norris was nearly a second quicker than Verstappen on the last lap. Yeah, Verstappen's going to have to wake up.
The main losses to Lando, turn 2, turn 6.
Yeah, my tyres don't work, mate.
Just information, Max, that's all.
Yeah, same for me.
Verstappen is complaining about it.
I see. Oh, okay. I'm pushing, mate.
And that's always the difficulty. When you're hunting someone down, you get closer, you've got more pace, but then you get the dirty air and you start to slide a little bit more, overheat the rear tyres, particularly in Imola. And that was what Norris had to balance out. And we can see the data here, which shows pretty clearly what was going on. And the first thing to see is how the straight line speed is different for Norris on lap 58, now tucked in behind Verstappen, versus lap 50 when he's got a little bit more clear air and he's hunting down Max. In the red, the top speed is coming up a little bit quicker. He's entering the corners from a higher speed with the slipstream, but of course that means that he's got the dirty air because he's not got the airflow over his car on the straight, less drag, but also less downforce. And if we look at the steering trace, you can see what that onboard was showing pretty clearly at Tamburello, at the Villeneuve chicane, and also a little bit on the exit of Acqua Minerali. So the medium to fast corners, Lando's just struggling with the rear end now. And this was the sort of effect that is just typical dirty air and was really just stopping him, charging all the way to the back of Max. Still, it was great pace to have that car control and be able to fight those oversteers and not lose too much time doing that and still be able to attack Max. Showed, first of all, how on the limit that Lando was, but also the pace of the McLaren was so strong that he was able to punch into DRS range. And who knows, a few more laps, it would have been a pretty spicy race out front.
We're getting there. I think we're still getting there. I'm not confident enough just to say we're there, we're fighting, and we're matching them 100%. It's clear, like in these conditions, the very hot conditions, Max is still that level above, and Red Bull, I would say, are that level above. But we're closer than we ever have been, and obviously I'm more confident the car's performing at its best. So we've made a lot of progress, and the team are doing an excellent job back home, and everyone here in the races. So it's nice to know that we're so close, and even with their upgrades and things, and Ferrari's upgrades, we're still better this weekend.
I think naturally McLaren and Ferrari they definitely took a big step forward, and now it's all very close. And from our side, for sure, on the hard tire it wasn't that good. So that's something that we definitely need to analyze. And of course, the start of the weekend, that has been an ongoing process.